Hey everyone, and welcome to another How Lucy's review. Today I am reviewing a roll and write game like no other that you've played before, I imagine. This is Torpedo Dice. This was designed by Chris James, who is actually the president of Stratus Games and started up the Casual Game Insider magazine, one of my favorite game magazines, and still finding time to design and publish some games, which is awesome. This is for 1 to 4 players, so it does include a solo mode, which we'll take a look at as well. Yeah, so let's go ahead and first talk about the quality of the components, the rule book, etc. Nice shape box here. Great quality box. And the artwork is fun. I really like the kind of cartoony take that they took on this. Great cover artwork here, and very, very cool. So it's a very quick game. It takes maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so to play. The rule book is pretty good. I mean, it's not a huge deal. I mean, it's really cool that they have this in multiple languages, but it is one of those rule books where it's all kind of built in one, which is a bit unfortunate. It's weighty. I don't speak French, unfortunately. So I gotta flip here to the English, which is fine. It's not a huge deal. I just, it's something that's kind of interesting because really the rules are this. It's just a few pages. And so, I may choose to just kind of remove these pages and kind of staple them myself. I don't know. But the actual rules themselves are pretty good. So they go through, pretty simple game. You're going to roll the die, choose a die, and then you have a potential option to modify that die result. You fire some torpedoes and in a grid according to the die, and you're just trying to destroy your opponent's submarines or submarine before you get destroyed. So as I mentioned, there is a solo mode. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But the rules are good. I think it takes people just a minute to kind of wrap their mind around what the game does in general. But I think the rules are good. Explain everything. It's really a pretty simple game, so let's get to it. Other components. It's also a very minimalist type game, right? So you're going to have in here 4 identical boards that are double-sided. There is a basic kind of beginner trainer mode here, recognizable by the yellow color and the little training dice here, or the fuzzy dice there. On the other side, you will find more red type color, and it actually, I didn't notice this the first time when I was playing on this other side, but the submarine actually is painted like a clownfish, which I thought was pretty cool. A little clever little art thing added in there. So you got the yellow submarine, and you have the Finding Nemo submarine, the clownfish. This is kind of the advanced mode. So there's 2 different sides, dry erase boards. So we're going to have, you have 4 dry erase markers, and then 5, I have some components set off to the side here, 5 yellow dice with black pips. I think the dice are great quality dice. Very, very nice quality dice, so that was good. Dry erase markers, probably have encountered these. They're just pretty basic, but they got the little eraser on the end, and they work well. So you get those included as well. That's it. You got a little basic insert here that allows you to kind of stick the markers and everything down below. Boards on top with the rule book, everything closes, and you're good to go there. So the actual gameplay, some of my thoughts on how does this gameplay play out? Let's talk about the basics of it and the things here. So the first thing that kind of wrap your head around is this submarine that you're looking at is the player to your left, their submarine, right? Because you're inside your submarine. You're looking at a dashboard here. This is your opponent's submarine. In a 2-player game, obviously, just back and forth that way. But a 3-player, 4-player, it's going to be your opponent is going to be the opponent on the left. Very simple way to kind of manage that element of, in an attacking game like this. So on your turn, basically you always roll one more die than the number of players. So if I'm playing with 2 players, I'll go ahead and roll 3 dice. The active player is then going to choose one of these dice to activate. The other player would then have to choose from the remaining dice to activate. This is not used. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to take out your opponent's submarine. At first, it felt a little busy, and I was a little confused at why we have all these other dots here, because you're not going to fill in these dots. I mean, you technically could if it kind of helps you visualize it. And that's why they're honestly there, is to help visualize a 3x3 grid corresponding with the dice here. And I'll just show it in the rule book. It'd probably be easier than me trying to show you here. So there's a really good explanation in here. If you're looking at one single pip, you can put that anywhere because you're really just making a 3x3 grid anywhere. And so you're able to put that anywhere there. The 2, you can flip it around and stuff, but they need to be kind of in the corners. There needs to be a space in between them. You can't like clump them up like that or move them around normally. So yeah, you're 3 or 4. So you're envisioning this 3x3 grid that you're going to be placing these numbers on. Let me show you just one example here. So if I'm looking at this, and I want to put in a 5, I could use this 3x3 grid right here, and I can go, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. There would be one that would go there. That's not in one of these target areas. So to just keep the board clean, I wouldn't put it there. But what happens is every pip that's unused, you have to go over here in the corner and mark off one of your spare torpedoes. If you ever mark off all of your spare torpedoes, you are eliminated from the game. Okay, so you need to be efficient with the pips that you're playing. It's not always like, hey, I want the 6 all the time, right? It may be like, well, I don't really have a good place to play a 6, or else I'm going to have a lot of extra spare torpedoes that I'm going to use. So there's kind of this balance of like you're rushing to try to fill in all the targets, but if you're not efficient with those, you may end up killing yourself there with running out of torpedoes, if you will. Okay, so on your turn, you're going to pick a die, and then with the trainer mode, you can choose basically any one of the abilities here to modify that result. You can, in this situation, you can flip the die over. A 2 becomes a 5, a 5 becomes a 2, a 1 is 6, and so on. If you really, really want a 6, take the 1 die, flip it over, you can utilize that 6. Now, as long as in this training mode, as long as they're active, in the training mode, not destroyed, you can utilize them. There is a little bit, these powers here can be a little bit more powerful than some of the others. So there is a max of 3 times. So every single time you use it, you would just fill in a dot. And as soon as you've used that power 3 times, you can no longer use that power. The other thing can happen is your opponent can destroy those systems on your submarine. You may have noticed I have like the kind of tail wings here near the propeller that are right here is showing just kind of this whole system. If my opponent, the person to my right, is shooting my submarine and they are able to fill in all of the targets for that system, they have destroyed my system. So their board would look like this. And then at the end of that round, everyone would then kind of notify and be like, okay, yeah, I took out your propeller. And I would then have to come and cross off that ability. I don't have that ability anymore. My submarine's getting a little bit weaker, my options a little bit fewer, and so on. So, trying to take out your opponent, you win the game by eliminating your opponent first. Whoever is successful in doing that. Now, if someone dies in this regard and they kind of do their torpedoes, people are going to add up basically the number of torpedoes they have and the number of targets that they've hit. And whoever has the most would be the winner. So that is Torpedo Dice, the basic version here. And it does take a little bit to kind of get used to the grid, right? Or the lack thereof. So you'd have to look at this and you can kind of envision other little spaces, which again, you can utilize that grid as long as you can make that grid. So I can do a 2 here, right? And it would go there and there. Or later on, this window is my favorite, absolute favorite ability here is you can take those and you can put it in a line vertically, horizontally, or even diagonally to utilize that. So if I had this ability available, again, in this, I can only use it, 3 times. I could use the 2, and usually I would have to put the 2 here, and that would, one of those I could fill in 1, and that would be a miss, and I'd have to mark off a torpedo. But if I use this window ability, I could then take those 2 and put them in a straight line, and I could even do that diagonally, and I could then put it right there. Or if I had a 5, for example, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this would be a miss, so I'd have to mark it down here, but you're able to kind of take those out. And initially sometimes you'll get into a habit of looking at this and be like, oh, a 4. Yeah, I can fill out this 1, 2, 3. No, that's not how the 4 works. The 4 is the corners. It's these ones. So there is kind of that element. Sometimes that could be a little bit tricky, I think, maybe for some younger kids trying to see that. But it's, as you can see, a pretty simple concept and game, and marking those off. And there's some interesting choices as far as, again, getting a big die to cross off lots of things. That's a nice idea in general. But you're able to mark off with the 6. Maybe you could, mark off those. But then you're going to maybe hit some more torpedoes. If you only use 1s or 2s, that's nice. You're not using up any spare torpedoes. You're very pinpointed and you're able to cross things off, but they're probably going to be too slow if you're dealing with just the low numbers. So it's the combination of what dice come up. The player just rotates around the different abilities. You can add a pip anywhere in the grid with these missiles. This one allows you to, go up or down 1. You can't wrap around, go from a 1 to a 6, but you can go up or down 1 otherwise. This one you can remove a pip before you place it on there. And so basically helping kind of save you from adding that. And I've already mentioned that one there. So that's the gameplay. It's pretty quick. And it's kind of cool and interesting. Again, very different than maybe other roll and writes that you've seen. The other side, there's just a little bit different elements here. You have another system here. The grid is a little bit different, right? We have more options, more space. You can ignore this in a multiplayer game. That's for solo. We'll talk about that in just a second. But yes, so you have a little bit different grid. It is fairly similar, but see, like the windows here, they're clumped together. We have groups of 4. In this one, it's 2, 2, 2 across. We have the missiles here, whereas here there's just a couple of them overlapped. On the other side, we have that set. And so there's a lot more going on. And this introduces another interesting thing of you can take a die and usually you modify it and you shoot. You can also take a die in this one and you have to activate the system. So these, you'll see like a little toggle switch area, a little white circle. And I can't use any of these abilities right now. I have to activate you have to activate your systems to be able to use them. So it's pretty important to kind of get some active systems going. So instead of firing with a die, you would choose the die and then you would be able to activate one of the systems. I can go ahead and activate this one, for example. Now I can do that. It doesn't become inactive. It's activated until someone destroys it, and then I can't use it anymore. And then you'll notice these ones here don't have that same little open spot to activate it. Those work a little bit differently. So anyway, I'll get to that in just a second, because obviously they're more powerful abilities as well. What happens is that after you've activated it, it's always active, right? So now I can always switch, flip over the die, which is awesome. In order for these two, the windows and these torpedoes, to be active, you have to look at the systems to the left. They both either need to be activated. So now, since both of those are active systems, I would be able to then use this. I've activated one, but not the other. I can't use this. It's not available to me as an ability, right? And again, you can only use one ability per die, per turn. But let's say my opponent destroys this. I haven't even activated it, but it's destroyed. So they both need to either be active or destroyed, or a combination thereof. So this one's active, this one's destroyed. I can now use this ability. Okay. And that's really the change as far as the more advanced mission mode, if you will. Okay. So that is that. And then the solo version. Okay, let me get to that. I actually just finished playing right before this review, a solo mode here. So the solo mode utilizes this up here, and in the game, it's still true, I'm going to roll one more die than the number of players playing solo, so I'm going to roll 2 dice. And then I'm going to choose one of those dice. And depending on what I choose is going to impact basically what the what the AI is going to do, right? So solo mode, same objective, is to destroy your opponent's or the AI's submarine here. And I was so close. It's kind of tough. I don't know. It's interesting. I need to play around with it some more, get better idea of, the abilities and how to manipulate those. I think there is a learning curve of how to best apply it. The game itself, very easy to learn. But this is the AI here, and this is them destroying my systems. And this is the last turn. I rolled, I think it was a 5 and a 1, and there was nothing I can do. I was going to lose either way. It was going to take out my windows here. But yeah, it actually works really pretty well as a solo game. This game was really frustrating. I kept rolling 1s and 2s left and right at the beginning. I quickly activated my little periscope up here, allowing me to flip things, giving me a little bit better options. And then I chose to activate this fairly early on as well, because I really wanted the ability to utilize my window ability of putting things in a straight line. Helps a ton. So I quickly got that and, kept it my system. I didn't want to lose that ability. And so there were some interesting choices and things with the solo mode, because basically what happens is on your turn, I choose, let's say, the 6. I fill in whatever, maybe these dice, or these targets here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd have to fill in a spare torpedo. The other die that's not used then crosses off one of the relating systems here. So I would go with the 3, I'd have to cross off one of those. Once you've crossed off both of these little things, the AI has taken out that system, so you can cross that out, and you cross it out on your board, reminding you can't do that anymore. And so you lose if they take out all of your systems. You win if you're able to take out all of their systems, which you track here with these little explosion marks. You would fill those in. If you feel that, are able to take out theirs, you would fill in this, and you are victorious. If they fill in yours, or if you end up, going and crossing off all of these, you can also lose that way. But it was a really, really close game. I was like, oh man, I was originally starting, I was like, man, this is hard. Like, my systems are going to get taken out so fast. But I think it's actually really, really well balanced as a solo mode here. And so I think it works really well. Now, some of the other thoughts here with the game. So the solo mode works really well. I think it's very smooth, very interesting decisions and choices of, choosing what you need and choosing what is not going to mark something else off. And there's also another element of, hey, if it's already marked off, if you happen to destroy one of their systems that same turn, then you don't have to do anything. If you don't, then it goes in this circle to the next thing. Oh, that's destroyed, and it would go and mark off another one, the first open slot. So there's kind of a strategy of when to maybe take out systems, so that you won't have to cross off something else. So it's really, really kind of interesting. I like it. I think it's fun. It's quick. My only kind of question with this is, even with the double sides, the grid play and everything, I don't know. I'm not, it's probably a little too early to tell, but it makes me a little nervous as far as replayability, right? So, the set powers, I don't have any issue with that, because you have, different people maybe targeting your systems, or, someone's like, oh, they've already used 3 of those, so it's, I don't want to go after those first, yet the dice I have, that makes more sense. So there's some interesting choices that come up, and you're looking at your opponents, and you may be thinking, man, they use that ability a lot. I'm going to go and take that out first, or different things like that. But I don't know. It's a lot of other roll and writes, I feel like, have just a lot more openness to them, or variability. I guess I think what would be cool with this is it's like almost like more like a battleship type thing, where beforehand you're able to like choose how to orient the different things. Maybe they could have a set structure to it, right? But you could kind of create a very wonky looking submarine maybe. And so these are in a different grid. I think it would be cool if they did an expansion, or, included in this base game, another board that had another orientation, maybe different abilities, but maybe just, a different orientation of targets. and then on the other side have it be blank. And before the game starts, as part of the game, you actually are drawing it in. So it's like a blank grid, and you can draw your own submarine in there and choose, where you put your torpedo stuff. And then once everyone's done doing that, you pass it to the person on your left or your person on your right. And say, I guess you pass it to the person on your right and be like, here's my submarine. That way there's variability in there. I think that would be really awesome. I think that'd be really cool. I feel like that's something that I is just kind of missing, is like that ability. And I think that would add a lot to the game if you kind of had a grid and you're able to kind of shift things around. But otherwise, I really, really enjoyed this one. It's a pretty quick one. Torpedo dice. And yeah, that is how Lou sees it.